Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. There's a new convention in town, and it's sure to be mega fun without the mega expense. Comics, toys, collectibles, pop culture. ShadowCon, Saturday, February 1st, 2025 in Orlando, Florida. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, and good evening, and welcome back to Silverline Wednesday Wham, folks. How are you all doing this evening?
Oh, there we are.
Hey, and we're joined, of course, with Barb and Rob, and I'm Martin. So let's do our typical introductions here at Silverline, and then we'll get on the interesting, deep, potentially profound topic tonight, and we'll see where that goes. All right, so let us, ladies first, over that way is our wonderful Empress of Inks, Barb Kalberg. Introduce yourself, Barb.
I'm Barb.
She's Barb. There you go. So she's inked, and she's been in the industry for 30-something, 40 years?
Not quite.
Not
About
30,
36 now.
36. We'll just say 29.
Yeah.
Always 29. No. And she's done wonderful stuff, and she has her own creator-owned book in Silverline, Divinity, the wonderful story of a girl who is being chased down by people because she has some sort of healing factor. And below us here is the venerable Rob Davis. Tell us about yourself, Rob.
Well, I've been in the industry about as long as Barb has, probably maybe a year earlier. We'd have to sit down and figure it out. So it's 30 some odd years. At this point, it don't matter.
It don't matter.
After you've been in for about 10, 15 years, it's same old stuff. But I started out working with the little guys and some of the smaller publishers and worked my way up. Worked for Malibu, did the Star Trek stuff for Malibu and DC, and then the implosion came along and puts a lot of us out of work, and I was one of those. I've done a lot of stuff since then. I've since retired from my real job. And
my muggle job.
Yeah, my muggle job. And
that was 6 years ago already.
I am now drawing retirement. and coming back to my first love, comic books.
Yep.
And Silverline's giving me an opportunity to branch that out. I've got some of my own projects I'm also doing, but and I also do art direction and design for a company that I am partners with Ron Fortier in called Airship 27. We publish books, and check us out, airship27hangar.com. That's our catalog. We're in the midst of the Pulp Factory Group is every year does a contest or picking the best pulp novels and anthologies and the artists and so on in those. And I've been nominated for a couple of awards in that. Check over on my Facebook page. There's a link over there where you can get to that. Rob M. Davis is just look for me on Google or in at Facebook as Rob M. Davis. You should be able to find me. And that's the end of my commercial for this episode.
And you've been. Oh, go ahead, Barb.
I'm also Silverline's bean counter, if that makes any difference.
Right. Yes. And Rob, is Twilight Grim still available in previews?
No, we are now on to the next month. The last issue, Twilight Grim #4, was in January.
Last month's previews. Okay.
Yeah, this was
Cat and Mouse.
This is the book here. This isn't the cover that was in previews. This is from our Kickstarter.
So that's Rob's book, Twilight Grim, that he's worked on with Art and Salvatore.
Yep.
And that is a fun romp if you're into vampires and vampire hunters stuff.
Yeah.
So
and grim and gritty.
Yeah.
Good guys.
So,
yeah.
As mentioned, Cat and Mouse. Cat and Mouse is available now. This is one of our flagship titles.
Previews now.
So this is an absolutely wonderful title. It is lots of fun. And so go look that up in the previews and ask your comic books for that. And of course, we make books like K-List. We make books like Teen Beetle. We make books like Trumps, which is not Donald Trump. This is Trumps, the card game. The awesome sci-fi series. Wolf Hunter. And I'm Martin Mertonen, and I colored this.
And don't you have a thank you to make?
Don't I have a thank you to make?
Uh-oh, you stumped him.
It's Wolf Hunter.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Wolf Hunter kick. Yes, the GoFundMe for Wolf Hunter 2, it went through, folks. We got it done. It is going to print. So thank you so much to everyone who signed up for that. It is now going to be available. Can people still get it on the crowdfunder, or is it like cut off?
The crowdfunder's done, and I feel like a mom saying, "Okay, son, now make sure you say thank you." Yes.
So the total. I'm so sorry, I blanked on that. It is my own book that I colored. My goodness, issue number 2. So
spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you guys can go and see the wonderful approach that I did to colors on that book. I did a very different approach for myself, and it kind of threw me for a loop, but it ended up looking pretty cool. So I think it's going to complement the first book, and it complements the new art, and it's really it's a fun read. So I hope I set the mood, and all right.
That's the colorist's job.
Yes. Now setting the mood. Are we in the world of doom and gloom? In the world of comics? Or what is my opportunity? So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about...
Let me get in the mood here.
Yep. We have to have somber faces and... oh no, the comics are dying on the vine. We're not going to have comics anymore. No, so so we're bringing this up because there's been a lot of rumblings in the comic book industry lately of various stories that have been coming out. And this could potentially provide an opportunity for individuals or small groups or independents to step up to the plate and do something here. And we'll talk about this a little bit. So I guess one of the biggest things that's happened in the news lately is the fact that Diamond Comic Distributors has filed for Chapter 11. let's see if I can find that story here. Get rid of all these ads. Why would you do this to me? Come on, stop! Don't do that. Okay. And we will also talk about some companies have had layoffs. Yes, so here we
Yeah.
go. Bleeding Cool. And you can find this story in other locations as well, such as Comics Beat and
Oh yeah,
IBC2.
it's all over the interwebs. Yeah.
So Diamond Comic Distributors declares bankruptcy, and they state that Diamond UK and Alliance Games may be bought by a Canadian distributor, Universal. I did not hear about that, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And so this means that they are going to restructure and have a bunch of stuff going on, and they're going to sell off parts of the company to different people, and they are going to focus on.
Well, hopefully sell it off to different people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a done deal. It's Chapter 11 allows them to start
to restructure.
Yeah,
right.
And there's always
going
to be somebody to come in and pick up the slack. And I know Rob was around when Capital City Distribution folded, and they were good friends of mine. They were local boys here in Madison.
I remember that too.
I live right outside of Madison, and the Capital City Distribution was located here in Madison. Big warehouse over on the east side. And when they folded, it was Diamond and Capital, and everybody's like, "Oh no!" Well, it just folded into Diamond then, and everything just went on.
Yeah,
it was sad, yes, because they were an awesome distributor.
Yeah, right. I think they also distributed in the Kansas City area and where I live now in Central Missouri, and I think we had a subsidiary, but there were a lot of places that had their own little small sub distributors. I think we had Cadence Industries in KC, but I think they were affiliated with Capital. But yeah,
somebody's going to see this as an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they will sweep in.
So now there's a company that's called Lunar that's kind of come in, and there's one other distribution company that Lunar is competing with, I guess. Or I'm
Penguin?
Not Penguin. No, it's Lunar and another company that I'm not very familiar with
the name either. Yeah, but
but they're the two seemingly companies that are doing the distributions now. So now, okay, maybe you guys can fill me in on some of the, I understood that the distributors existed, and I guess they're the go-between between the comic book company
and the brick and mortar.
The comic book company, the printer, and the brick and mortar. So the comic company would send their books to print, then they send them to the distributor, and I guess the distributor would then warehouse all these comics, and then they would ship them out to the retail outlets that would order from them. That's kind of how it works.
That's kind of it, but make sure that you get the fact that the comic book company would put the books together, send them to the printer. Now, the printer did not send them back to the publisher.
No. They send it to the
Diamond.
I'm just
right.
Yeah,
here's the way Silverline does it. Here's the way Silverline does it. Speaking as the bean counter, Diamond puts us in the catalog, and they get pre-orders for our books. Okay, so they're not going to be warehousing a ton of stock. Okay.
Right.
They get pre-orders from Diamond, and then they give that order to us. And then we print how many orders Diamond has already sold. And it goes from the printer to Diamond.
Right.
And Diamond sends it on, branches it out, and sends it on to all the little brick and mortar stores.
So now, back in the day, did they used to do overprints a little bit so that there would be backstock, or was it print as close as possible to the amount of orders that were put in?
No, there was backstock. Otherwise, Capital City Distribution wouldn't have had a warehouse.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now, when you have a backstock, now that takes up space and that takes up inventory, that takes up a bunch of other things. But how far back does the backstock go? Would it be years, or would it be just like a couple months, or would it be like so?
I don't know how much backstock they do anymore, because now they want in this age of print on demand, if you want a second run, you just do a second run.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the numbers are not. It used to have to print a certain number
Mhm.
in order for it to be economical on these big web presses. And by web presses, these suckers are huge. I worked at a printing plant for 6 months, and I actually saw some of those big. You're looking at room-sized rolls of paper.
Yeah.
That are they're as wide as the room, and as they would fill a whole room, length and thickness.
Yeah.
And they would run those through it, and so that prints a certain number of pages as it runs through, because it's so wide. You have to have a certain number of copies of whatever you're printing on each one of those sheets as it runs through the machine.
Yep.
So in order to make that economical, it had to be a certain number, and it was usually in the thousands.
Right.
Back
There was a
then.
minimum order amount that you had to order.
Right.
And if you didn't have brick and mortar orders to cover that minimum, then it was warehoused.
Yeah. Or it was sitting in your garage.
You went ahead and printed them. You went ahead and printed them because it was still cheaper per copy.
Yes.
Than if you tried to go to a smaller printer that could do a smaller number, the cost on it actually printing would skyrocket.
Right. Yeah. So I did some preliminary analysis into this. So I reached out to a printing company called Quebecor, which is the mammoth printing company out of Montreal.
I checked with them at one time. Yeah.
In order to get your book to be economically feasible, you had to print a minimum of 10,000 copies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so then you would get your books down to I can't remember if it was back then it was like as cheap as 8 cents a book, maybe. Maybe a little more than that. I can't remember exactly.
It was crazy cheap.
But you had to print 10,000 copies, so it was still like an $8,000 print, right? But like it was like But then if you then the idea would be then you mark up your book, you sell it, and then once you make your profit back, or once you make your money back, then anything on top of that is gravy, and then basically it would be up to you to either house all the books that you had left over,
or burn them,
or pulp them some way, shape, or form.
Conventions and sell them.
Right. Well,
you save a certain number of them to do that with.
Yeah. But there's a certain point in time where it's like, well, okay, I've got I still got 5,000 books sitting in my back issues.
I might be able to do it if I have 5 acres around my house. I guess I could get a bunch of trailers and start sticking them in the trailers. But I think my neighbors would get upset. Hey, the guy's got all these junky trailers sitting in the yard.
Well, when the electrical grid goes down, you can burn them to keep warm.
To keep warm. Yeah, start a bonfire. Right.
So in this day and age,
use them as toilet paper in case of the apocalypse.
So now in this day and age, we have wonderful options such as Kablam and other print-on-demand services that exist. Let's see here. So here's Kablam. So if you're an individual and you want to print your own comic, you can go here and you don't have to pay $10,000 in order to get 5,000 copies or something. You can get.
But per copy price is a lot higher.
Yes, much steeper.
Higher.
Yes.
And so nowadays, in order to make a profit, you on a print on demand, you have to have 1,000 copies or more. Under 1,000 copies, if you're doing it through previews anyway, you're really cutting it close to breaking even. We print exactly what Diamond orders +1.
Oh wow, +1.
Yep, that goes in our Roland keeps a copy of everything that's done. So that goes in his file. So but we only print exactly the amount. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
So
okay. There's Lulu. Yeah, Lulu is another.
Okay, so we will get into these guys later. There's other print options that are available as well that people can look into, but we will talk about that in a minute. Okay, so they've had the comic distribuitors have had their woes, and so I'm not sure if there's other distributors that are having issues, but one of the issues that did happen is one I just read on Bleeding Cool that a comic book publisher, Blood Moon Comics, I believe that's what they were called, has now because of this had to actually shut down. So they've which is an interesting proposition. So going through a classic distribution model or historical distribution model. I guess that means that you still are somewhat tied down to having a certain amount of books that you have to print, and your money is kind of caught up in that until you can recoup your costs from the sales, right? So
Yeah, there've been something just came to me because I was going, unless you have your own
I saw the
printing
light
press.
bulb.
Well,
mm,
boom, because what makes me think of this is that Charlton Comics actually had their own presses. They had their own printing. The comic books. This is back in the old days.
Back when we were just
I think
little,
when did they stop publishing? 70s, 80s?
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in that area. They actually were their printing presses were used to print like cardboard boxes for cereal and other packaging, and they had times when the presses were sitting unused, and so they started up this comic book publishing company in order to utilize those presses when they weren't otherwise being used. So, and that kept everybody working. Plus, it was economical. So, yeah, it today, if you had your own setup or you had your own printing press, and you
And
could
who
do it
knows? One
yourself.
of the as
Yeah,
technology is going forward in leaps and bounds. I mean,
true.
who ever imagined 3D
Uh-oh, we
printing?
may have
10
lost her.
years ago. Who knows that sooner or later we're going to have desktop printers that can churn out comic books.
Well, yeah,
It's not unfeasible
yeah, it
at
really,
this point.
yeah, it's quite possible, sure.
And
Um,
I have to say that there are quite successful companies out there that have completely bypassed distributors altogether. And look at She and Lady Death. They do a phenomenal business through crowdfunding.
yeah,
And then Billy gets a truckload of books, and him and his wife, their dining room turns into a distribution center, and
mhm.
right,
they get it
yeah.
out.
Right. So let's touch on that for
Yeah,
in
that's a good point.
we're going to come around back to
Back
that
to it.
because I want to bring up a couple of interesting things that are going on also in the industry, which is Dark Horse Comics has made some layoffs.
Mhm.
Apparently they're sweeping layoffs. I don't know how many people actually got removed, but apparently they're doing some changes on their home front. And not only are they doing that, IDW has also let some
I
people
heard
go
they
as
yeah.
well.
This is like the
Um,
second time IDW has done a layoff,
yeah.
isn't it?
So
They've been
IDW and
going
Dark
through
Horse.
some rough. They've been going through some rough patches here lately. The
Yeah.
last 3 or 4 years, especially, it seems like IDW has been kind of riding a crest and a trough, and I think they're in another trough. It sounds like.
Hmm.
Silverline has a bare bones staff, and each one of us doubles in our capacity. I'm an inker and a colorist, and I keep the books. And BJ Mann, she comes up with, she does all the media, the social media, she helps Roland behind the scenes, helps
Yep.
all different kinds. Roland is a writer, a publisher, an editor, so we all have multiple hats. The
Yes.
staff of Silverline does.
And also at Silverline, we also agreed to a very particular agreement. So, we know what we're getting into when we sign up for Silverline. So
unlike some comic book companies way back when I first started in the industry, you came in when they were promising you money,
Yep.
and you get to working for them, and no money would come. So it's better to know exactly what you're getting or not getting right
The
up front.
trade-off is we don't
Yeah.
have any.
And
Yeah,
we're
so- So Silverline is very upfront with you, and they say that if
Yeah.
you can live with our terms, then
Yeah.
we can work together. So long as you meet your deadlines and don't disappear. So yeah, but
Ghost.
that's the
Yep.
okay. So yeah, so all right. So the claim here is that the IDW and Dark Horse are facing some staff layoffs. Dark Horse is apparently reducing their staff by 10% due to inflation and overhead, despite record sales in the year. That's in 2021. So I guess the carryover from 2021 doesn't come all the way into 2025. And IDW confirms layoffs affecting key roles,
Yeah, and we can
such as
we
vice
can
president and
probably
senior vice president positions. So I guess those are high-paying positions. So get rid of those guys.
and note the year 2021, which is right after the pandemic, right after COVID really hit big, and it kind of devastated a lot of things economically. And I think we're still seeing some of the fallout. I think Diamond is part of that because they actually shut down. They actually shut down for a couple of weeks.
Their decisions, Marvel's and DC's decision to pencils down, and Diamond's decision to close up shop until it was safer to come in was a huge. Both of those decisions were huge, devastating factors for Diamond.
Yeah. So and then speaking of inflation, there's a article here for Screen Rant talking about the possibility that the inflation might be affected by the tariffs that Mr. Trump wants to put in.
Because there are some books being printed in China.
Correct.
Right. And
that's supposed to push us to use American printers. However, this is the caveat. American printers, great. Totally for it. Where do they get in their paper?
Right.
Canada.
Canada. Where do they get their ink?
Yeah.
That's all kinds of little side issues here. Nothing's you say, oh, this is great, this is great, but if you start getting into the weeds, as we call it,
right,
you find out
the nuts
one
and
little
bolts.
action you make here doesn't just make this little reaction here, it branches out everywhere.
The butterfly effect.
It's
the butterfly.
All right, so
the world is a complicated place.
Yeah, so okay, so we have a distribution company that's having some issues. We have some comic book companies that are having some issues. We have the possibility of tariffs and rising costs coming in. But does that really prevent us as individuals or as independents or as smaller groups from actually creating our stuff?
Hasn't stopped me. I'm 3 issues ahead on Divinity.
Yeah,
they're penciled and waiting for me to ink and color them. So
and you get right down to it. We don't even have to print to actually do creative stuff. We can do it on the.
That's why I
we can do it on the internet.
I foresee a big boom in web comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I see nothing wrong with that. I don't think print comics are going to go away completely. I think we're going to move toward graphic novel sized things because they're more economical to print. But that's maybe jumping the gun a little bit because we're still on the doom and gloom part of this discussion.
Well, no. Let's shift into we're going to shift into the positive side here.
Okay,
so the graphic novel bit has been that shift has happened for years, and that started I think in the late '90s, early 2000s, and then slowly and that's now like bookstores are like just covered in graphic novels.
All right.
And all sorts of different it's just like, man, it's crazy. And my biggest problem is I love all sorts of comics from all sorts of different I like manga, I like European comics, I like North American comics. I like them all. And there's just so many options. I don't have the time to read them all. Yeah. And I want to read them all. It's just like, God, where do I find the where do I find the money and where do I find the time? Like, it's just like there's just so many cool books that exist,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, and if there's some that don't tickle your fancy at all, you ignore it. But there's going to be another book that does, and and in it, even in the broad categories, there's still a whole bunch of books that are still want to dive into and take a look at. And but yeah, so
There aren't enough hours in the day to read everything that I
correct.
can read. I have
Yes.
I have gone down the manga rabbit hole on webcomics.
Hmm.
I have got a whole box of unread comics that I need to get to. I've got
I have two
several
short boxes
graphic
full.
novels that
Yeah.
that I want to get to, and I still read. I read a Kindle every night. That's electronic, and I still read physical books. So
So right, so where can creators go and get their stuff put out? Well, if it let's say the physical product is too much of a hassle to do, well, you can go and sign up for Webtoons and start hammering out your comic already, and it's completely free for you to do so. And
I'm addicted to that site now.
so there's that little publish button. You can sign up as a creator, and you can end up here, and they show you how to. They give you the information that you need to know in order to kind of get something started. And if that doesn't suit you, then you can go to. You can just do. You can go
Tapas.
to Tapas as well. You can go
I've also
to.
got some stories on there I follow.
Or you can just start punching your stuff out onto Facebook or Twitter or Patreon.
Blue Sky. Yeah,
There's also
Instagram.
The only caveat I would say about Patreon is first, before people are going to pay
right.
to subscribe to your channel on
Yes.
Patreon, you have to
have a product. Yeah.
You have to develop a name for yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody's going to pay to see an unknown.
Right. So now global.
They're not going to pay for something. They're not going to pay for what we call a pig in a poke.
Right.
Now,
see what
we don't know about.
What Webtoons and Tapas does is they give you like 10 or a couple of dozen free episodes of the story, and then you're sucked in, and then they go, oh, next one you gotta pay for.
Well, depending on which branch you go on, some of them are completely free. Some of them you have to cough up, and then if you go to the canvas ones, I think those ones are free. So, and the canvas are the people who have not been picked up by the original series, so you can graduate in their system. Then there's Global Comics. Now, Kasisi D. Harris, who is our co-host, who is not here tonight, he has his books up on here on Global Comics. I believe Silverline has their comics here as well. So if you want to sign up as a publisher as well, or someone who wants to produce a book, you can put them into here in this space.
I see.
Where else can we go? Okay, we mentioned Tapas. So here's Tapas, and this is some of the stuff that they offer, and they have a publishing.
Very manga-ish.
Yes, they're very manga-ish, as is Webtoons, but there are some cartoons that are comics that are slightly different style. So
I'm reading Solo Leveling on that one right
now. Let's see, and then then there's other printing options. So we always recommend Kablam because we are friends with Kablam, but there are other options that are available.
Sure.
So there's apparently Red Comics. There's Ingham Spark. This is if you want to print your books. Now Lulu, I've worked with these guys. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're also a higher quality product in general.
Yeah,
but it's still
and
a little bit steep.
You could shop around in your local area. If you're in a big city, there's probably a printer there that you could go talk to. And see what their deal is.
The advent of print on demand really bust the market wide open.
Yeah.
It's what got me back into it really originally was the fact that we had Ron Fortier and I, we talked about Daughter of Dracula a few episodes back, and that was when he and I hooked up together, and we put together this graphic novel. We could sell it to any of the big companies, and I was starting to learn about print on demand, and I said, well, heck with that. We'll just print copies and sell them at conventions, So then that's exactly what we did. And plus, you can also at Kablam, you also sell them on what's called Indie Planet, which is where you can go online and order either a digital copy of it, or the real thing can be printed and sent to you. So,
And see, there's
it
another.
opens up a whole new world to creators.
You just
when that
mentioned.
happens.
Did we lose?
We lost our host.
Yes, you
But
just mentioned something that is also another avenue, and that's digital comics.
Yeah.
Selling them the PDF. So
yeah, PDF, or there are other formats that are out there, which I know very little to nothing about. PDFs are probably the easiest to get.
We were just
together.
talking about digital comics being another avenue.
Yes, right.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. So yeah,
Because and when you print anymore, no matter who you send it to anymore, you have to make it into a PDF in any case to send it to the printer. So you can just keep that PDF, and if you're going to sell it online, it's best to squish it down to as little a size as you can.
Yes, right.
Zip it or whatever it needs to take, because the Acrobat will shrink stuff down for you, so it's a small size. It makes if you try to print it, it makes it pixelated. But reading it on a screen, it's fine.
Gray Wolf.
That's hey, Gray Wolf. But that's definitely an outlet for books. You've already got to do it to send it to a printer anyway.
Right.
Just take that next step and turn it into a PDF, or you could make it into an EPUB, or another format, Kindle format. So,
the thing I noticed about webcomics is that their chapters are a lot shorter than an entire issue of a comic. So you've got to have all these. You got to think ahead and have all of these little cliffhangers.
Well, and comics used to be 6 and 8 page stories, and you'd have 2 or 3 of them in a book, and then suddenly we were going to these longer length things, and plus the issue after issue. So you'd have a 24 page story, and it would just be chapter 1 of a longer story. So but maybe we're kind of getting back to that smaller bites to take. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about is that and I've started to punch out a book that I've been creating with my boys called Catahoula, and the thing that Catahoula Strange Hunter. The thing that's intriguing is the fact that I don't have an audience except for my boys. So how would I start? Like, I could throw my book out there into the world and say, okay, hey, come and buy my book, but like nobody knows it exists, right?
That's how J.K. Rowling started, right?
Right. Sure.
She was writing for her own child.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we have so many different platforms and mediums that are available to us, and you have an audience reach potentially that you already have a little bit of a tap into, and starting point is Facebook, right? So the first thing that I've done is I've started posting pages to Facebook, and some people have given me the thumbs up. I don't know if I've had much commentary, but I mean, I was walking out of the coffee shop the other day and ran into a lady I know. And she said, "Oh, I've been seeing your comic on Facebook," and I was like, "Oh, and just that little phrase, I saw your comic on Facebook, just gave me a boost, right?" So like, okay, so now I think I've got 4 pages up so far. So now I got to keep hammering them out and get them out. And then the other aspect of it is looking at webtoons and how do they format their stuff. And this also touches on like, okay, distribution and companies and all this other kind of stuff. Well, if the world is changing and things are different than what they used to be, don't lock yourself into a traditional method because that's supposedly what works. But if nobody's buying the traditional method, well, what do you need to do?
how well
you
is
need
it
to
working?
adjust, right?
How well is it working? Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you need to adjust and go, well, okay, I still love comics, but maybe I have a different way of,
Now, webcomics are vertical. You
yes,
scroll.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
because they have to scroll
Right.
up the screen.
Right.
Yep.
And what was it? Oh yes, and our conversation a couple weeks back where we were talking about some of the book formats, and what are you producing, right? So like we talked about this. This is
Mhm.
Will Eisner was one of the fathers of. He was one of the fathers of comic books and graphic
Yeah.
novel and stuff, and there's a certain point in time where he's like, well, you know what? I need to adjust what I love making comics, but right now I got to make this. I got to make a comic book on how do you take care of your stuff in the military, right? So you
It's a
might have your
manual.
you might have your dream. You might have your dream of what you want your comic to be, but if you love comics for the sake of comics, be willing to consider, well, I made a comic about how to wash your hands in the hospital, and it's called The Bug Stops Here, right? Right? But I mean, it's comics, right? So like,
Yeah.
be willing to consider, like, well, maybe I can use comics to do something more than just my. Eventually, you can work towards your dream idea, but maybe there's other ways you can take your comics and then reconsider packaging comics. Like this book, the packaging on this book is just absolutely insane. Like the way they set this thing up is amazing. It's historical. It's got documentation on stuff on like how where the story comes from and all that kind of stuff. So there's other ways of thinking about what is a comic. How do I make?
I have a cousin. His name is Terry Beatty, and he used to do Ms. Tree, and he worked for DC and everything. And then he got picked up to do Rex Morgan, the daily strip.
He also did the Phantom for a while.
Yeah, the Phantom. He did the Phantom first. Now he does Rex Morgan, and that is a whole different kettle of fish from doing, a sequential 22-page book, because you have to encapsulate in 3 to 4 panels.
Well, the
That's
beats
it.
are different too, because you've got the week, you've got the dailies.
Yeah.
You've got 6 dailies, and then you've got a Sunday. And if depending on which newspapers pick you up, some papers will only pick up the dailies, and some papers only pick up the Sunday. So, and even the Sunday is laid out differently. So it is a whole different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
You have to be able to
working comic strips.
encapsulate a story and move the story along and keep people's interest in 4-panel stretches or 3-panel stretches.
It's every day is a cliffhanger. Every day the story should make you want to. Well, what's going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah,
that's so. It's the beats are different. Just like in a comic book, you want at the end of the page, you want some reason for the reader to turn the page and see what's going to happen next, and that's happening in a 3-panel. Yeah, it's a 3-panel strip.
Different type of writing.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
So one of the things that people need to consider is what is the outcome that they want with their stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have this dream that they're going to overtake the entire world, and we're going to conquer DC and Marvel, and we're going to be the best thing since sliced bread and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes, okay, that's a wonderful dream to have, but I mean, if you're not 19 and you don't have all the time in the world and deep pockets, that is never going to happen. Those guys have
someone
75 year to 100 year they have a 100-year history behind them, and so you're like, okay, so what are you wanting is a question that needs to be asked. And that okay, are you satisfied with 100 people? Are you satisfied with 50 people? Are you satisfied with making a couple of just producing stuff so that people can see it? Or do you want to make a couple bucks? Where do you want to? And if you set your thresholds at certain levels that are achievable,
Do you want to make your sons happy and
well, yeah,
have
that's
them
exactly
remember this
Yeah.
for the rest of their lives? My
bingo.
father and I
Yeah,
made a comic together.
that's right. So that's so right now that's my goal for that book. And if it ends up being picked up by somebody, or if it ends up being going other places, or if it takes off for some strange reason, then so be it. And that'll be great. That'll be gravy
Yeah.
on top, right?
Who
And
knows?
if it turns out to be just a really incredibly fond memory that your children have of you, that's a winner too.
That's
Exactly.
success. That's
Yep.
success. Depending on how you, Do you
Yep.
want to be? Do you want to be rich and famous? This may not
Right.
be the industry for you.
Yeah.
Right now.
So that also brings up another interesting topic, which is kind of like well, style and time, right? So a lot of people want their books to look a certain way, but then you also have to take into consideration, well, how much time does it take to produce that, right? Like if you want to produce Bernie Wrightson, that takes time. That doesn't just fall out of your nose and appear on a page, right? So how much time do you want to spend? Do you have that time available to you? Do you not have that time available? If you don't, well, then you need to adjust, right?
Snoopy.
Yeah.
So you need to
and
adjust.
do you want to try and stay on a monthly schedule, or do you want to put it out when you put it out, when you finish?
Yep.
There's a lot of different permutations of what you could be doing.
Yep.
So you have to just we're probably overwhelming some folk. Well, how can I choose on any of these things? Well, again,
What feels right for you?
It starts with that. What is it you want out of this? Find out, figure out what it is that deep down is the thing that you want to do. My particular one is I want to sit at this drawing board and put stuff out there for people to look at. If it's a handful of people, that's cool. If it's hundreds, that's cool. If it's thousands, that's even cooler. But I'm at a point in my life where I have to do this now. This is what drives me. This is what keeps me getting up every morning.
Right. And for all you young whippersnappers out there, I turn 66 tomorrow.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you. And I know Rob is older than I am. And
a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is me not sitting in a rocking chair and reading all day long.
Right.
This is me doing something. It makes me feel dynamic. It gives me purpose.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I don't care if I don't make a fortune on it. It gets me out talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps me young.
Mm-hmm. So there's another question I have for you guys. Do you think comics have become cost prohibitive over time, or do you think they're at a fair market value?
Respect? In what respect? Well, value. Now you're getting into a whole other camp. That's the key. Are you getting value?
It depends on what the market is willing to bear.
Right. So the one thing that I've been thinking is that I would like, so my thinking process at this point in time is, well, since you don't have, if I don't have an audience, I would try to build up an audience in the best way possible, which is, find every single internet avenue available to me and get my book out there, or book or comic or strip or whatever it is. Just find as many different avenues to make it be seen. Second thing would be, if you're going to produce it as a product that people can put into their hands, make it as easy as possible for them to buy it. And then depending on whatever it is that gets printed, your hands might be tied because of whatever the printing costs are of that thing. But if there's an alternative mechanism of provide it at as economically as possible to that audience but then on the flip side of that, you would then also have to figure out how to be as economical with your art. So there's always those caveats that need to be taken into consideration.
For the amount of time you spend on it, are you going to be able to recoup what you think you're worth?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you
spending the
making?
time on?
Yeah. In the end, are you making less than minimum wage? A lot of times you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. Right. We collected newsprint for decades now. Everyone thinks it has to be super glossy and heavy. It really doesn't. It just has to be good.
That's an excellent point.
So this is another.
I think though there's one issue with that is that it's not that much cheaper to print on newsprint anymore than it is
This is true
on
too.
slicker paper. That's part of the problem. It used to be, I mean, you know, tenths of a cent per copy if you ran enough copies through the web press.
Yeah.
So using newsprint, but that's not true anymore.
Yeah, if you talk to Tommy Floramonte of Kablam, it's really not hardly any difference at all.
Yeah.
No,
So
there's
then the other
very
question
little
is
difference.
how long would traditional newsprint last? Right. So
But if you're not putting it out as a collectible, you know, if you're not putting it out there as a piece of art that's got to be kept forever.
So then that's
if
another.
you're wanting little kids to roll it up and stick it in their back pocket, that's a whole different deal. Which is what comics were originally for. They were cheap reading. They were throwaway reading. No one ever expected to save those things. That's why they were made on newsprint, because pulp paper deteriorates. It's got acid in it.
I know that, Grable.
Yep.
And Pop says Alterna still makes news tint comics. We put it in a bag and board just like a Silver Age book. I don't, and that brings up something else too. I don't even know if the paper that's used anymore is archive worthy.
Yeah.
Does it have more acid in it?
Or what the modern paper or the
modern paper?
No, the modern paper is more archival.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I never looked into it.
Yeah. So I work for a printing company, and the paper will last.
Worked for a printing company.
The paper will last for years and years and years and years. So like they're
a lot more. The paper used today is much better than it was back in the 50s and 60s, and even into the 90s. I think when they started using better paper for comics, and they cut. You didn't have that yellow, orangish, or brownish color that everything was printed on. Newsprint it's got that kind of brown tint to it.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of old archival stuff, there's a little history. I ended up working for the National Library of Canada one summer, and I ended up scanning old newspapers into the computer, and I had to find this balance because they were such huge pieces of paper. I had to find this balance of size of the graphic and quality, and it was crazy because I had to scan it in a certain DPI, but then if I put it online, we had to shrink it so much.
The file is
we had to shrink it so much so that it could actually be seen online, and then it was like we were losing information, and then the picture became terrible, and it was like it was crazy. But I ended up holding some like ancient newspapers that were like 1800s, 1700s. And it was crazy. And
did you have gloved hands?
I had to wear gloves, and
the cotton gloves, didn't you?
And some of them, the paper, the way it was made, and the chemicals or whatever, the silver that was in it or whatever, made them super brittle. So they were like, okay, we're okay if there's like little edges of flaking off, and it flakes off. There's nothing much you can do about it, because the second you move it, the wind or just the
motion
would cause breakage. but this is like, but if you tear a page, like, bye-bye, nice knowing you. So it's like, so that was an interesting, but yeah, so papers today are much better. So now that said, have you ever tried to burn a modern comic book?
I've tried to burn magazines.
So
With
the
the
modern
slick paper, they
yeah,
do,
Yeah.
they
not
do
burn.
not burn. They don't burn. Yeah.
No, you
It's,
can't start a fire with one.
No.
well,
can't.
they're just
Not
very
easily.
difficult. Yeah. So
You even shredding it up,
Yep.
even shredding the paper up
Yep.
doesn't make it more. Because I use when I barbecue, I use a chimney.
hmm
You know, you put the charcoal inside, and then on the end there's a little area for you to put paper in to burn to start the charcoal.
Oh.
I actually would get newspapers to use, but inside those newspapers are slick advertising, right? Printed on a slightly different type of paper. That paper's worthless to start a charcoal chimney. The
Yep.
newsprint,
Yep.
even the newer newsprint, you can shred it up and put it, or crumble it up and put it in there, and it'll start a fire. But if you pull apart all that
Yeah.
heavier paper or that different paper, it's worthless. It won't catch fire.
My dad still lives on a farm, so he's got a burn barrel, burn pile,
Mhm.
like you can't do in town. And
Yeah.
he took a big stack of magazines out, and he had other things around it. Set it on fire. The fire merrily went along. It burned everything around, but that pile of magazines, they're still there.
They were still left in the bottom of the barrel, right? Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. They don't burn worth a darn.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know.
Now, you had said something earlier about making an all-out push on social media.
Yes. Right.
And so that gives me a chance to plug next week's show. We are going to have our very own BJ Mann as our special guest next week. She does all of our ads, our social media. She puts together videos. She puts together
Yeah, you heard her voice at the
graphics.
beginning of our episode tonight.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we are going to be grilling her on how to grow your brand, how to put yourself out there, the little tips and tricks of social media, and how to
Marketing guru.
Yes, our marketing guru. So be sure to tune in on that and learn all of the tricks of the trade for marketing yourself and your crowdfunder.
Yep. So
I expect to learn some stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. So the industry is a little bit creaky, but dude, is it all doom and gloom? What do you guys think?
The industry, every few many years, I mean, goes through earthquakes like this.
A chrysalis.
They used to happen at regular intervals, about a 10-year interval. That's the 10-year interval is gone. It can be anywhere because there's so many different things that can affect it now.
Oh, yeah. When Frederick Wertham came along, that was the end of comics.
Yeah. I mean, it almost
Seduction of the Innocent.
was. It almost was.
Yeah, but it recovered.
It shrank, and it found its niche again. And then along came Jack Kirby and Marvel Comics in the 60s, and they found that niche. And that we've been riding that wave for how long now?
Yeah. I mean, it's cyclical. And there's ups and downs, and we seem to be in a trough right now, a depression. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be something that comes along that rises us up to the top of the wave again.
Yeah, we had a big shock with COVID. I mean, anybody who lived through that will tell you it was a shock. It shocked everyone across the world, and we're still living with the aftershocks from that, and that's what we're going through right now.
I mean, and the next
it's a shakeout.
The next big thing in comics could be right around the corner. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, there could be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just tomorrow.
or some new way to do your comics or promote your comics or print your comics or get it out there. We don't know.
Right. So that's one thing I think I would encourage people is think outside of the industry norms. Like so, and perhaps the comic audience is oversaturated and they're no longer your audience. Maybe your audience is in a totally different location that you never knew existed. And so think and part of it is also educating people as to what you are providing. So it might look like a comic, but maybe that's not what it is. So that's so think. I think if people think in a different kind of way and think about, oh, okay, and you realize I need to reach just this much people to be supported in order to produce what I want to produce. If you can find that and be satisfied with that, go with that, right? And sometimes we just have too many of these kind of, I want this big giant universe of all these characters and all this stuff going. Well, but that's already filled. That's already, people have already filled that space. Go find another space.
Be the next
Go find something else.
Be the next Bone. Be the next Strangers in Paradise. Be the next Ninja Turtles.
Yep. Yeah. So and perhaps even go take a look at all the companies that already have stuff. Go look at the big three, and then look at, or even Boom Studios and IDW. Go look at all their stuff and then say, okay, what is not here?
Divinity.
Right. Yeah. So what is not here?
What are they not doing?
Right. So
okay, yeah. There's the industry's Swiss cheese.
Yep.
Find the hole that you could fit in.
Exactly.
Swiss cheese. Yeah.
Right. And maybe there's somebody who's crying out for a comic about something that nobody ever knew needed to exist, and find that. So I will leave this with you. The two main lessons that I learned in business school, and the teacher said, these are the two lessons you will never forget. Everything else in this entire time that you're here, you will never remember. And he was absolutely right, because he got us to stand up and make fools of ourselves. And so the two things that we learned was find a need, satisfy the need, benefit from the need. So that was the first one. So that was the first lesson. It was those three things. So when you find a need, you find that thing that the people are wanting to fill the void. You satisfy it, and then you benefit. You benefit because they give you the money. They benefit because they get what they want, right? And the second thing was, what was the second lesson that they taught us? Plan, lead, organize, control. So plan your stuff, lead it, and make sure that you don't lose all the little moving parts. Organize it and control it. So that basically means just planning and being consistent. And that's actually one of the biggest things, is being consistent. Consistency is one of the best things you can have to build an audience. Because the second historically in comics, the second there's been an inconsistency, people will forgive like the first miss. They'll be somewhat lenient on the second miss. After the third miss, they're like, we're out. And you're done. So if you can be consistent, but you got to set the expectation in advance, and then you got to meet the expectation. The second you start missing the expectation, then it's done. But so if you set the expectation and you say, okay, every 6 months I'm going to produce a page, well, you've set an expectation, right? That's But if you say I'm going to produce a page every single day, and then you miss. Now you've got to
as we talked about, this book took 2 years to make. I made 1 page a week.
There you go.
So consistently putting it out.
Right.
If I knew I was going to miss a week, I would do 2 the next week, or I'd do 2 the week before. So you gotta hit. Yeah. So
make
a promise and keep it.
So if you're in the industry and you're not able to pursue the traditional models, such as, hard copies and print and all that kind of stuff. Figure out how to get your stuff out there digitally or other alternative ways of getting your stuff into hands. And hopefully people will give you a couple pennies for it.
Just
And,
remember, Ninja Turtles started out as on a copy machine in a basement.
Yep. Yep. And just remember the Egyptians used to draw on walls. So, and and my son still draws on walls, but yeah. so I don't think the form is going anywhere anytime soon. It's just a matter of opportunity.
It's evolving.
And consider it and reconsider it and think about what is possible. So thank you for joining us. It is not all doom and gloom. There's lots of comics out there, and there's comics you can create, and we at Silverline have comics that you can buy.
It will shake out into something new.
Right.
It'll be something different, but it'll shake out.
Yep.
Got your buttons ready to push there, Martin?
I will in 1 second here. Let me just get my is this yeah, there we go. All right.
Okay.
Where we go. This time I will do it properly, I think.
So
Yeah.
as we like to say here at Silverline, make mine
Silverline.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.
You didn't end it.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.